Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another technical discussion on our channel TTN Square, and we will be talking about something really interesting today, which is exploratory testing. And when it talks about exploratory testing, there are a lot of myths across the world where people certainly get back to me and ask so many questions that is that really we don't create test cases as a part of exploratory testing? Is that exploratory testing is all about experienced people or even a fresher can do that? And there are many other such questions which I keep coming across when people get confused, and certainly look forward to a very comfortable, satisfying response, which I would like to share with all of you, which I certainly share with everyone else when they have these questions. So today we'll be talking about exploratory testing slightly in little detail and helping you understand what are the myths and how we can overcome and justify the same to all our audience, at the same time talking about our professionals, organizations, and the test teams to build a better community. Now, the very first definition of exploratory testing was defined about exploration. The word exploration is all about the more you know about the product, the application which you are trying to test. Forget about testing for some time and let's understand the word exploration. For an example, if you have been looking forward to go for a vacation, right, and that destination has been exciting for you for sure, you may have Googled up a lot of information about that place. Like today you go to TripAdvisor or Expedia and a lot many other places, they certainly give you the list of places to be visited when you're there. And the very first Google search which you will make about your destination which you want to visit is, of course, the best places to be visited in a day, 2, 3, 4, whatever you're planning for. And the Google will return you with so many options, so many results that, hey, these are the 10 best places to be visited, 15 best places to be visited, and these are the set of things. Now you sort out all that what you could visit in your tenure of visit in that particular place. Now the point here is, what did you just do? You did a virtual exploration of a destination which you have never been to. And I think the same pretty much applies to our applications, the product as well, because this product is being built for the first time, has never been seen before, and you hardly have some basic outline with you called as requirements that, hey, this is the destination, this is how people think about it, these are some of the pictures from there, and you need to go and visit the place. Now, if you have been instructed by a guided tour, that a guide is telling you that, hey, on the day 1 itinerary, this is what you will be doing, day 2, this is what you'll be doing, you are just limited to that. Now, look back on this example once again, that what if I prefer to go for a holiday package under one of the travel agency? The travel agency gives me an itinerary that, hey, day 1, you will be having a welcome and registrations and sort of thing. Day 1 afternoon, you will be taken to these 2 places. Day 2, this is what will happen. Day 3, this is what will happen. But the point is, they will decide what you should do, right? They are telling you that this is our scope. Of course, it's covering those places which you wanted to visit, but you don't have any kind of tweaks in the plan. You have to follow the instructions given by them. Now, that's what our test cases do in the reality. On the other hand, if I'm talking about, hey, I don't want to let people or let a travel agency decide where I want to go at what time. I must have my own freedom of going places whenever I think I'm ready. For example, I'm not a person who gets up early in the morning to see a sunrise. So I might be curious to say that, okay, let's skip the sunrise and visit the sunset. Right? So you'll find places where you can best watch the sunset or spend your time over the beach, right? So now the point here is that these are my non-test driven testing of the product, where I don't want instructions to be written and test the system. Now that's what is called as exploration. Sometimes you spend more time than what you have planned for. For an instance, if you have been to a particular place and you somehow came across that, hey, there's another garden, beautiful garden right here next to it, which is another 100 meters away, which was not in your itinerary at all. Now you decide right there that should I also go and visit, because that depends on your ideologies and your interests. That is that something which excites you, and would you like to make a visit? So you would immediately decide there that let's go and see that place. Anyways, we are here close by, right? So somebody just tells you that, hey, there's a beautiful garden another 100 meters from here. If you're interested, you can go and spend some time there. Now you decided. Now this was out of your itinerary, which you thought of doing yourself. So you could just, plan then and there and visited that particular garden as well. And now you put some pictures, people know that there's something hidden there. Now that is what is exploration. Non-driven by instructions, by itineraries, etc. So the point here of talking this example is exactly to define the meaning behind the test-driven executions or test case-driven testing of a product, or the non-test driven, which is exploration. So in simple terms, exploratory is all about letting your mind go in different directions, letting your mind think about ifs and buts, and then trying to come up with your perceptions to test the system so that uncovered defects can also be discovered. Whereas when you talk about testing a system systematically using test cases, it is pretty much limited to the instructions what you have written, and you are just like the horse which has two flaps next to the eyes, that you are single directional. You are instructed, you are being directed that, hey, these are the things which I have to execute. If anything fails here, hooray, we got some defects, but if doesn't, oh, the product is working pretty fine. Now, sometimes thinking differently, thinking weird will help you find different defects. And that's what is exploration. Now, talking about exploratory testing, a little more about the concept behind it is not about what experience do you really hold. It's more about how you build the experience. Yes, exactly, that's true. It's not about being experienced person to test it. Now, in that context, the very first myth here is that does experience really matter to test the system? Answer is yes, experience does matter, but it's not limited to experienced people. For an example, if you are saying that exploratory testing is all about experienced people doing the testing, then in that context, all my managers should do the testing and all the newcomers to the industry should manage the projects. Because test managers, test leads are highly experienced people, and they are the best candidates to conduct exploratory testing. So all my executions, all my exploratory testing should be gone to test managers. And I don't think the managers or leads actually step in and do a bit of testing as well, because they are busy reporting, planning, monitoring, and taking care of the team, managing the work, coordinating with other stakeholders. This is what they generally take care of on a major note. Of course, they do a bit of testing, but not 90%. Now, in case of exploratory, as per the definition given, it should be going to only leads, only managers, or the most senior person in the organization who claims to be test director, that, hey, I have 20 years of experience or 30 years of experience in testing, then you are the best candidate for exploratory testing. Now, if it's not, then what is it? It is about the exploration. As you went to the place which you wanted to visit and you asked the people nearby that, hey, there's anything else which I can spend time with, or I can go and visit when I'm here. Or what's there? What is that place? What is that I see there? Why people are crowding that side? Is there anything specific in that corner of that place? That's called as exploration. And what exactly you're doing is asking questions. Asking questions gives you more details about a single requirement for sure, right? When you talk about being requirement driven, you are writing test cases to elaborate it, trying with positive, negative scenarios. But when you talk about exploratory testing, you still have the requirement, but you ask different questions on top of it. That what if a user will do that? What if is this correct? What if is this not happening? What if? What if? So the exploratory testing is not mad about experience of the person. Of course, a bit of experience can add a lot of value to the exploratory testing, but the more you ask questions, the better you have the understanding of the product and what you have to test. For an example, if I give you a question paper, right, to write an examination, and if you just answer that, it is just going to make you qualified for what you attempted. But if you're talking about being a master of it, having better scores in that examinations, you should ask me questions when I'm teaching you that concept. Again, taking the example of trainings, right? There you will always find, right, different group of people. Some people just nod their head and say, yeah, we got it. We understood what you were trying to explain and what you're trying to say. But when it comes to another group of people who ask a number of questions back to us, they look forward to, ask unnecessary questions to us. Hey, I don't understand that. How does it relate to static testing? How does it relate to techniques? Can I really apply some techniques for static testing as well? Can we do unit testing after integration testing, right? So people ask weird questions sometimes. Why? Are they not understanding when the others are? No, they are understanding, but they are curious to know more beyond that. They want to add more value by asking more questions. The more you ask me, the more answers I'll give you, and the more understanding you will have about the functionality and the feature. So exploratory testing is just not about having experience of similar products and testing it. It's all about how many questions do you really ask me when I'm giving you a simple requirement. Imagine talking about early testing, in talking about static testing, you are asking questions that, what about this parameter? What about this detail? What about acceptance criteria? What about achieving it? Can we really, right? So that's the most important thing which I wanted to clarify as a part of this discussion, that exploratory testing is your involvement with the product and the team in terms of asking more and more questions to the business analyst, product owner, or the customer. The better you know about the product, the better you know about the functionalities, the more and more questions you ask is what you call it as exploratory testing. Now, asking questions is what you call it as exploratory testing? No. Asking questions will give you exploration about the product's functionalities, do's and don'ts, right? And based on that, you can test the system. Now, that's the first myth which we wanted to clarify when we talk about exploratory testing. So experience doesn't really matter. You have been trained. For an example, if I'm talking about a fresher and he's or she has been trained in the domain, given some basic fundamentals, but given an ideal understanding of that how exactly the system should be tested. Now, given the information that, hey, whenever you have something unclear, whenever you have information given to you, come up with your different types of questions. What do you think is, disturbing you? And put them all together and then define your strategy, define your interaction of testing the system. Now that's what we call it as exploratory testing. So given that a fresher, having understanding of basic functionalities, the domain understanding, a bit of that, and then asking the questions will help them also to test the system. Because a freshers also ask the questions during their education, academics, to the instructors, to the professors. That, hey, I did not understand your concept, which is equivalent to the requirement. So you start exploration right from your graduation, not only in the industry. Now, the second important thing here was that, how about the documentation? Okay, I understand pretty much that the testing is exploration here, in exploratory testing. What about the documentation? Do we really have to take care of writing some test cases or talking about mapping things back to the requirement? Oh yes, of course, you need to take care of some of the things. Okay, it's not necessary to document test cases because exploratory testing is more about the more and more interaction with the system and generally performed when you have time pressure. Another criteria I would like to add here is when you have less detail about the requirements or about the product. When you don't have detailed information available as a specification, that's where you prefer to go with exploratory testing. Now, given that you have limited information, we apply the logic of exploratory, that is asking more and more questions to the customer, understanding the product in interactive way, and then testing the system. Now here, there's no possibility of writing test cases. You don't really have to, because you have the understanding what you're looking at. But in any given situation, when the test case fails or your testing finds a deviation than the expected or any failure is observed, then in that case, we document a formal test case, log the defect, and track it. Because now it is going to involve more stakeholders. If testing was limited to testing team or just a QA, you don't really need anything to be documented, because fellow members given with the same mindset understand what you mean, what you were trying to test. But when you talk about any other stakeholders, for example, developers, architects, management, customer, they will be interested to know what exactly did you do? How did you got this failure? How to fix this? Like, developers will ask you information about what data did you try with, what steps did you follow to reproduce the defect, and many other things. So only in the case of deviations and failures, you will be creating a lightweight documentation to let the other stakeholders know what is your problem. What is that you need them to work upon, and what is that they should be fixing. On the other note, when you talk about information sharing, right, that how exactly exploratory testing has resulted into better coverages, right? Now, coverages are another important aspect of testing. Like, people generally look forward to understand how many test cases did you write so that my requirement has been covered 100%. Now, that's a different story when you talk about the test coverage. Test coverages can be measured through different modes, different ways. But if you're talking about saying that, okay, being very precise and accurate on the covers, measures on the coverage, like code coverage, conditional coverage, decision coverage, statement coverage, please don't forget that these are limited to unit testing, because a small code is concerned. And for a small piece of code, you can do very precise measurements. For example, there's the if condition which has true and false. All we know is we need hardly 2 test cases to have 100% coverage, right? But when it comes to integration testing, where multiple modules are involved, when it comes to system testing, when the whole application is involved, I really cannot have so precise measures that how my 200 test cases is achieving 80% coverage on the requirement, right? In that context, exploratory testing offers you the option of recording your sessions. It's a time-boxed test session execution. You don't do exploratory for an entire day or a full week saying that, hey, for 1 week I've been doing exploratory testing and I don't have any proofs. Now, you break this 1 week into multiple time-boxed sessions, depending on the size of module, depending on the criticality involved or risk involved, complexity involved in a module, and then define the timeline for each session. Generally, the exploratory sessions are between 30 minutes to 120 minutes, depending on all those factors which I just kind of mentioned, right? And these sessions will be allocated for certain specific requirements. They will be linked back. They'll be traced to a specific requirement and functionality that, hey, this is what we are doing this 30 minutes execution for. Specific functionality to check that login is only allowed for valid credentials and invalids are rejected. Now, 30 minutes, I'll try with so many valid and invalid inputs, and I would say, all right, this works fine. Now, that sessions can be linked back to that particular requirement that, hey, we did on the basic test. Similarly, if you try signing up and working on that, you can link it back. Now, exploratory testing, being exploratory without any tests, can be recorded. That is going to be very helpful in terms of doing a coverage measurement, doing some kind of analysis if failures happen, because it's very difficult to capture the steps to reproduce a defect, right? The steps required to reproduce a defect for a developer becomes very complicated if exploratory sessions are not recorded. So we generally have tools which do desktop recording and even highlights the clicks, etc., that what a user makes would certainly result into a beneficial source of information or guide for other stakeholders to understand what exactly you did and how this defect can be reproduced. Now that would give them the measurement of the information, what they need to understand. So it gives you the documentation part with the recorded session. It helps the evidences to be published. It also helps developers to reproduce the defect. And more importantly, these sessions act like a documentation to be linked back to have the coverage measurement being done. Now, final important thing here to talk about is the naming conventions. If I'm talking about the alternatives or synonyms of exploratory as ad hoc, random, or any other thing, for example, monkey testing, it's very difficult to say that they're the same, okay? Because monkeys do random testing, okay? Random in the sense like unoriented or misoriented things, but not misoriented is the right word because it's unorganized testing. Why did people start talking about random testing or ad hoc testing being called as monkey testing as well? Because monkey doesn't have an intention of jumping from one branch to another branch to go from point A to point B. The most important thing here to understand is that a monkey is not intended to follow a zigzag path to travel from point A to B. He or she is just doing it, right? Out of curiosity that, hey, let me just hang up, I'm a very cool person in the forest and I love jumping here to there. Just because they love jumping, is that we can call it as a testing? No, he's not doing a branch testing. He's not doing a tree testing. They're jumping from one branch to another, but we are validating things. We are just not clicking randomly. We are just not clicking ad hocly. We have an objective to achieve. And remember, team, there's a difference when you do something without an objective and there's something when you do with an objective. The with objective will certainly have some takeaways from there, and this has a meaning behind it. We might be doing exploration, and that exploration does not mean zigzag. Clicking randomly here and there, just blindly clicking some options and looking forward to defect is not what we call it as exploratory. Exploratory is all about when you ask more and more questions, get more and more details about it, and ask your queries to be answered through an interaction. Right? So a doubt session can also be called as an exploratory session because you are asking a lot of questions there and getting better clarity and confidence. The most important thing is when you say gaining confidence about the quality of the product is achieved by exploratory testing. Confidence is something which you measure by interacting more and more with the system. But functional coverage can be achieved by test cases. But confidence can be achieved by how much clear you are with the system while you were interacting with it, right? So it's not good or convenient to say that exploratory testing can be called as monkey testing or exploratory testing can be called as ad hoc testing or random testing. No, exploratory testing is completely a different approach of identifying different defects without following a systematic approach, because here nobody told you that these are the questions which you should ask. And yes, it is different from checklist based testing because checklist has predefined taxonomy based questions available. So can asking questions be related to checklist based as well? No, checklist is fixed. Here we are still exploring. We can ask any kind of questions which comes to our mind about the product, about the people, about the end user, about the functionality. And that's what makes you an exploratory tester. So look forward to more understanding about how this can be implemented. There are a lot of tools, you can explore them. There are a lot of details which you can capture about it. There's a documentation called as test charter, which consists of the information of every single exploratory session. A test charter is a log sheet which contains the information about what you're testing, why are you testing, what questions have you asked, what more questions have you got while you were doing this exercise, how long you have done this exercise, like the start time, the end time, the time slot available, and the key observations. That did you observe anything specific during this operation or not? And that would complete your exploratory test executions. So summarizing it up all together, Exploratory testing is more about exploring the product without any test cases. But it certainly does not mean that you are just behaving like monkey to test the system randomly. You are oriented, but you have a number of questions which you need to answer by interacting the system. Right? So that's all from this particular session, team. I hope you had a very meaningful and very knowledgeable session here. Should you have anything else which you want me to talk about, please feel free to drop them below, because I'm looking forward to share my understanding and my experience with all of you. So that's all from today's session, team. Should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.